The man, the myth, the moustache. Something I could never highlight about myself because I can't grow that kind of moustache. Either way, in this video we're talking about the box of Burt, which is currently empty, but we'll get into it. So this is an umbrella release from, I believe it actually did come out this year in 2024, it might be late 2023. I got it as a part of their buy one get one free sale, which was very nice. Not a bad set, you know, you get your title on the top, you get your details on the bottom, which I think that just emphasizes, that just is the rights, copyright and whatever on the base there, as well as the barcode. And on the back, it, you know, details, prefaces who he is, what the box set's about, and all the films, including their special features, which is quite nice. So, you know, a good amount of stuff there for the go-ahead. For the most part, all of them are decent, you know, video transfers, either from pre-existing formats or some kind of a small restoration. Not too much effort in all regards, but none of them look bad to begin with. And they all sound pretty decent, some ups and downs depending on which track we're looking at. They all come with audio commentaries, and they all come with featurettes, some more than others. Some that are like so archival they're literally made for TV documentaries, some that are all presented by Gator McCluskey, who does a video talking about Stroker Ace. I think he does, does Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, the Cannonball Run, and Cannonball Run 2. But the Man Who Loved Women, there doesn't seem to be one. So, interesting. Anyway, we'll go into each of these releases individually, looking at artwork, my thoughts on each film, their video transfers, the audio transfers, what they sound like, and the special features. So there'll be timestamps down below for each independent film, which should be 6 to 10 minute long little clips. So enjoy. So first up we have the Cannonball Run 1 and 2, which is a pretty decent package for what it's worth. Artwork-wise, it's mostly a focus on the second film over the first, which is a bit disappointing. But the spine does have, you know, Burt's face. It does still say the Cannonball Run 1 and 2. And on the back, it does stipulate what happens in both films, whilst having images from both films and all the special features, as well as all the other details. The films themselves are fine, to say the least. Like, realistically, they're just fun, like, run-of-the-mill adventure, kind of go from A to Z films, you know, champion race films, you know, like the Death Race 2000, wacky races, stuff like that. Like, it's a mad, mad, mad world, that kind of stuff. And in all fairness, that's kind of the basic plot. It's not, there's no overarching story, there's no real theme to it, at least for the first one. It's mostly just get all these actors together and just have fun with it. And that's what it accentuates the best part. The second film recaptures that with some new cast members, but a lot of old cast members, which is really nice. A new bonus is Frank Sinatra, but it prefaces more plot than the first film did, and I think that's kind of more of a letdown because it can't focus as much on the race. It ends up being like, look, we kind of got to get more into this, you know, mob stuff. That's part of the plot. And the film almost detours itself completely from the race just to do the plot, to wrap it up, and then they're like, shit, we're already an hour and a half in, let's just do a quick animated sequence, and then do a quick wrap-up and say, oh, that person won, but have it be a joke and not really care about it. So it's not a very interesting film, the second film. The first one I gave 3 stars, I enjoyed it. The second one I gave 2 stars. It's probably worse, realistically, than that, but it's got some competency in how it's filmed. It's fine, but it's not great. In terms of picture and audio, the films look fine. They seem to be, they come from previous transfers that already existed in the UK and the US. Audio-wise, they've both been condensed down to a 2.0 stereo mix, which the first film I had some problems with, and I rewatched it after I watched the second film, because the second film sounds crisp, clear, no issues, the picture was fine. Like, these could definitely use like 2K restorations at least, but for what they are, they're fine. There's not much dirt and specks and stuff. It seems clean enough. I was happy with it. Like, they didn't look like shitty transfers realistically. They seemed decent. I thought they were fine. But the audio for the first film was really canny. It got to the point where I just unplugged my whole setup and just had the audio coming out of the TV, which it still didn't sound great, but luckily they have subtitle options that you can activate, which helps. It was confusing because every single time that Jackie Chan showed up, he spoke in Cantonese and there was no subtitles for him whatsoever. They rectified that in the second one by actually having the guy who played Jaws in the Bond films, like, be his translator, basically. But in the first film, they just have him partner with another Asian guy, and they're both just talking in their native language, and then the other guy just randomly says English words every once in a while. So they clearly just had him there because they could use the Japanese car, even though they call them the Japanese team, but they're not Japanese. It doesn't matter. And then have the fight scene, which is pretty fun. But yeah, so audio-wise, it seemed better on the second time around when I looked through it again, but it still was very canny. Wasn't great. I feel like it's one of those, because they've compressed a 5.1 mix down to a 2.0, it just doesn't sound very good. It only comes out of the one speaker at the front, so everything's fighting for priority from the dialogue, which is already a bit muted, to the, bassiness of the actual, like, driving and the engines and everything. So yeah, can't say it was a great mix, but it was still bearable, to say the least. I've heard worse audio mixes, but the second film sounded fine. The Cannonball Run opens with the menu of the first and second film, and you can just choose main menu for either, but it has the artwork of both on both sides, which is really nice. And of course you enter into both, and it gives you just like a little slideshow of clips whilst playing the main theme. So yeah, whilst giving you the options of playing the movie, or audio options with the commentary, whatever, all the special features, or going back to the main menu to choose which film you want to watch. Special features wise, I didn't take a look at any of the commentaries, even though I think it's only got... No, it has commentaries on both. The first film has a commentary with director Hal Needham and producer Albert S. Ruddy, but the second film has I believe that's the one with the exclusive commentary, which is done by film historian Nathaniel Thompson. There's From Sea to Shining Sea, a look at the cross-country car race in film by film historian Andrew Nett, which is really good. It's written and narrated by Andrew Nett and edited by Jared Kahan, who is just another guy I know of from this field of when it comes to editing. I've seen some of the other projects he's edited before, and they're not bad. Yeah, it's a good, like, 22-minute long video covering just these types of films, but also covering, like, it's basically like half dedicated to that, whilst building up to Burt Reynolds and Hal Needham, the director, and their team up in these types of films and whatever. So it covers their early Smokey and the Ace all the way to Smokey and the Bandit to Cannonball 1 and 2. So, yeah, Cannonball. I keep thinking I'm saying Cannibal. It's Cannonball. But, yeah, not a bad video essay. And then the both films feature Gator McCluskey Presents. I believe the other films in the set as well do so, which, of course, is the Burt Reynolds story for the Cannonball Run and the Burt Reynolds story for the Cannonball Run 2. The second one is like 10 minutes long. The first one's about 15 minutes long, has a bit more detail to it. Really nicely edited. The second one more emphasizes just the reception to the film and partially how it was made, but the first one goes into a good amount of detail. As an overall for this particular set, not bad. Realistically, you get some nice special features that give you some insight. The commentary is probably worthwhile if you really give a shit to actually listen to them. Transfers and audio, outside of the first one's audio being a bit meh, the overall picture and audio for the first and second film was still pretty good. I thought it was fine. It's a package that could benefit from, looking at the other actors who started them, because they're known as these big, ensemble cast films. And there is discussion about that within the video essays, but there isn't a lot of highlight on how they got each one in. Like, there's no thorough deep dive, which is a bit disappointing, but it is what it is to some degree. So I'm still happy that there is special features and that there are featurettes, because they are still well produced for what they are. So on to the next film. Next up we have Stroker Ace, which I actually gave 2.5 stars to the film. I thought it was fine for the most part, outside of a vague rape scene. It's okay. Like, but the three films I've seen so far are pretty standard kind of films. Like, I think when it comes to this kind of a set, it's clear that the majority of them aren't high art or anything. I'm expecting more or less, from the next two films, especially Best Whorehouse in Texas. I'm really curious to see what that's like, mostly because they're films I've heard more praise towards. This in particular is what if racing again, which I haven't seen a lot of Burt Reynolds films in terms of racing, so this is more or less an introduction almost. But it's at like the tail end of all of his famous films, so it's like kind of a bad one to start with. But again, packaging, the artwork, quite nice. I do like it. There's nothing really problematic about it. This just jumps you into the main menu of, play movie, choose your audio with the commentary or not, special features, and all that. And, it's fine, again, you get your wallpaper artwork, which is nice. The discs all look the same. I didn't take a look at the feature-length audio commentary, which comes by film historian Nathaniel Thompson, but it does come with two other featurettes, one which is very interesting, one which is a nice kind of stock standard thing. So the interesting one is the Gator McCluskey presents the Burt Reynolds story, Stroke Ace. This is the same as, he's been doing videos on all of these, and I expect to watch the rest of them as they go. This is a quick, 13-minute long video, him just talking about the production of the film, and more or less in this perspective of him as if he's talking to Burt Reynolds about how much Burt Reynolds regrets making this movie, and, using footage from other films and using footage from interviews and how he could have done Terms of Endearment instead, but because he'd promised his buddy that he was going to make this film and he didn't think, we can just not make the film yet and do it later. I'll do this other film that's being written for me that I might win an Oscar for, which instead Jack Nicholson won the Oscar for. So it kind of puts this film into a lot of perspective. It's the tail end of a lot of hits to do with racing, and it's a bad one, and it's also when he could have done a potentially Oscar-winning film, and he chose this instead. So it's kind of prestige bewilders the film itself. Everything that happens around the film kind of ruins the film itself. I didn't know that going into it, and watching it, I'm like, it's fine, it's an okay film, but yeah, in terms of knowing that kind of knowledge, which again, the video essay emphasizes and details nicely, yeah, but the video essay was nice. Again, they're all done by Gator McCluskey, and they're all nicely presented, and they're all the same kind of style, which is great. I even like how he does the Siskel and Ebert reviews and stuff like that, so it's not bad. I don't care much for the fact that he keeps showing all the credits, but like the bloopers scenes of him just sitting in an audience watching it, like in a theater. It's strange in a way, at least I think, because it immediately happens when the credits start is the bloopers. Like, it's not like a post-credit scene, so I don't know, it is a thing. But it also comes with a 50-minute long TV thing, which is Hollywood Couples, Burt Reynolds and Lonnie Anderson featurette, which is just one of those made-for-TV, look at these Hollywood couples. It literally has like a minute-long opening of just all these Hollywood couples, and then it ends with these two, and yeah, and I was like, when I realized it was 50 minutes long, I'm like, you know what, I'm not going to watch that. But it's like standard definition, whatever. Cute that it's there, though. Like, if you really want to know that kind of stuff, sure, especially because they met whilst making films, they made this film together and whatever, so it's like, look, that's the Hollywood romance, whatever. Good for them, Not a bad thing to add to it to give the film a bit more depth. It does also come with NASCAR movie trailer reel, which is apparently 25 minutes long of just all these different NASCAR movies. What do I think about picture and audio? I actually quite like the picture and audio. Again, it's 185:1. It's a dual 2.0 mono track. The mono track sounded great. I had no issues with it. Like I've had with the first Cannonball film, I've had no issues with Cannonball 2 and with this one. Picture on this one looked better than the two Cannonball films. Oh my god. the picture on this one looked pretty good. It was nice and colourful. It wasn't the most prestigious thing. Again, a 4K restoration wouldn't harm it, but at the same time, nobody's going to do a 4K restoration of Stroker Ace. So I think as an overall, this is a decent video and audio presentation. It looks good, it sounds good. I imagine the American release is a 5.1 mix, but I don't know if it actually has any other releases. So if this is the only release, even though it is also Region B only, it's not a bad way to go about it. So if you really care, I believe you can get this as a standalone release from Umbrella anyway, but yeah, I think in this set, it's definitely the better way to go. Next up, we have The Man Who Loved Women, which is a questionable film. It's, packaging-wise, the artwork is really a good indicator of exactly kind of what you're going to get. It's basically the story of a man who, well, I think saying a man who loves women might be a bit of a, to what direction are we talking about loving women? Because it's basically just him having sex with a bunch of women and being like, I really respect women. That's why I basically have sex with all of them. Including my therapist who's narrating this picture, because I'm dead. It's a remake of a bloody Francois Truffaut film from like 1977. Who'd have thought that Blake Edwards would stoop that low? Yeah, in terms of special features, you do have an audio commentary by film critic Adrian Martin. You also have Hollywood Remembers Burt Reynolds, which is about a 25-minute long made-for-TV, it's almost a bunch of trailers, with just the occasional narration in between, it's talking about Burt Reynolds and his life that made him choose this different direction. He went in this different direction here, and he did this, and here's a bunch of trailer reels. It's fine, I guess. Like, they talk about the best little whorehouse in Texas. They have like a 20-second spot for it. They don't discuss it at all, so they don't even talk about really most of his films. They just, yeah, it's basically till like the mid-80s, and then that's it, just from the start of his career till the mid-80s. So, I don't know, it's not great. There's a Blake Edwards trailer reel and the theatrical trailer, and apparently the trailer reel is just a bunch of movies that Blake Edwards did, so it's like, again, 15-20 minutes long, and I'm not going to watch those, so I'm good. Thanks anyway. The audio is 2.0 dual mono, which sounded good, again. So far, all of these have sounded a lot better than the first Cannonball Run film. Picture-wise, it is a 177:1 aspect ratio, which I'm pretty sure was just the whole screen. But yeah, it actually looked really good. Outside of the opening credits and the closing credits having like some spots here and there, the rest of it looked really clean and crisp. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if this was from a 2K restoration or something. Like, this did look really nice, and I'm like, why is it that the best looking film so far is the worst film that I've watched in this set? Like, in theory, Cannonball Run 2 was the worst one, but this is almost 2 hours long, and it's really boring. It had me a little interested at first because, you know, you've actually got a slot there. It's just, that is just a landscape image of all the women that he loved, or at least the ones who have talking roles of dialogue in the movie. Nah, I can't say much about this film. It's not great. It feels very much like he wanted to do a drama that would propel him into, oh, well, this was a remake of a French film, that did really well. Let's do that, and have me, the sex symbol that is Burt Reynolds. It doesn't really translate well, I think. Like, when you talk about translating a film from another culture, another language to an American film, most of the time it's the language is the barrier, but sometimes it's also the casting. Sure, the women look great, but Burt Reynolds is just a sex symbol who is a sculptor? A sculptor. Sorry, not a sculpture. He's a sculptor. And yeah, the film kind of gets lost in the fact that it just keeps on falling over itself. Like, it still sticks to landing of, hey, where the thematic thing is that woman's legs and how he objectifies women, and then it just becomes he goes to therapy, falls in love with the therapist, but also has a swing by going to bloody Texas for 2 weeks and sleeping with a woman who's married, and just, there's just all this stuff. None of it really has much consequence. It's one of those things where it's like, if it was about a guy who loved women and respected them a lot, maybe it would focus on one girl in particular. And there is a great actor in it who plays his, like, assistant, who was, like, a prostitute that he picked up off the street. And it's like, this is clearly the girl that they should focus on. Like, if you want to be, like, thematically strong and everything, you have this girl and he helps her and he changes her life, and in the meantime he has all these other romantic and sexual partners, maybe even including his therapist, but he's still focusing on fixing, like, this one girl, helping her to be a better person. But instead it's like a 5-minute thing, and she's already been set up as a girl who he doesn't sleep with, who's, you know, his assistant, who works in the sculpting thing, so she actually already is basically a resolved character by the time you meet her, and then it's just him narrating his past and telling his therapist of everything that happened. It's like, oh yeah, I met this girl and everything, but you already know that he doesn't sleep with her, and you already know because he tells you again that he doesn't sleep with her, so it's just like, oh, this means he cares more about her. It's like, it doesn't. He slept with a bunch of other women who he cared as almost equally the same amount for. So, yeah, most of them he kept sleeping with afterwards. I don't know. It's very strange. There's not a lot of dramatic emphasis on, like, anything, even when he does sleep with Julie Andrews in the end, which isn't even in the end. It's like in the middle of the film, and he, after a couple days or weeks, time is weird in this movie, of them sleeping together, he wants to marry her, and then she's like, I don't think it's going to happen because you're going to move on from me in like 2 weeks. And then he does, with a dancer, and then they only see each other one more time, and there's no real, like, consequence to any of it. Like, it just, she keeps emphasizing the fact in the narration, like, oh, he needs to go back to therapy, he needs to get this womanizing element out of his system, which, again, she's not a good therapist, so it's not really obvious that she's trying to fix him from being a womanizer, clearly, to the point that she sleeps with him, like, oh my god. So, yeah, and then she wants him to work with another therapist, and she thinks that maybe something's going to go bad because he's not. And, you know, me watching the film, knowing he dies, it's like, oh, well, it's, you know, he's probably going to kill himself or something. Or it's like, it's going to be really dramatic that, like, he just can't connect well with women anymore, and he really wants to be with her, but she's in Switzerland, and he just kills himself. But instead, he just, a couple of days before Christmas, meets a girl, sees the legs again from the start of the movie in a window, chases after the legs, and gets hit by a car. And that's it. Until he wakes up in the hospital, sees the nurse, who again is silhouetted in this very male gaze heavy way, and then he just goes like this, falls out of bed, and then the next scene is the doctor coming out of the room saying, who do I have to talk to about this guy? And there's like 8 women there, and they've obviously realized, oh fuck, he's dead. It's stupid. I would not recommend this movie. The film itself, like the transfer audio, fine. It actually is one of the best ones of them. Special features, I mean, the commentary might be good, but the rest of it, not very good. So it's the weakest of the set so far. Yeah, I gave it 2 stars. I wasn't very... it's not great. Anyway, on to our last film. And last but not least, we have The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, which is not a bad release, and actually, in my mind, the best film in the set. Really the only film that's arguably worth watching in the whole set, except for maybe the first Cannonball run. This one has probably the most amount in terms of special features, as you get the audio commentary by music historian Adam Devlin. You also get the final of the Gator McCluskey Presents the Burt Reynolds story, which again is a 18-minute long video, which talks about the film. It shows sections from the behind the scenes, and it also, well, the making of documentary, I should say. And they actually do that thing, how I mentioned before, how he will just sit down in a fake theatre showing the end credits. They basically re-edit the outtakes of this film into the end credits, which is fine because it gives you a reason to not actually watch the end credits, like the actual outtakes video itself, because it's all there. The only thing that's missing from this release is basically the one song that was cut out of the actual picture, which is referenced in this video. But again, nicely produced and nicely informative as well. The making of documentary and the outtakes are pretty good. The making of goes into a bit more detail of, you know, how they made it. It's about a 6-minute long video, and the outtakes are about 4 minutes long, but again, the outtakes are actually in the Gator McCluskey videos, so you don't actually need to watch them realistically. And last but not least, you have Nothing Dirty Going On, Sex Work in Musicals, video essay by film historian Lee Gambin, which is a 21-minute long video where he talks about, well, sex work in musicals. He's just running, basically almost spitballing each film and each musical that was adapted from stage or from books into a film format and whatever, both from the popular stuff of the 70s and 80s to what we have now to what we had like when they began in the 20s and 30s. So it's interesting. He goes into different details about different films like Oliver, like Les Miserables and stuff like that, and how explicit and how implicit they are. And yeah, it's again, anything done by Lee is always nicely informative and goes into so many different things. It talks briefly about this film itself, but realistically it's all about the genre, the subgenre, and how they categorize their characters. Like, here's the cliche person of that, here's the focal point of this, and all the, back and forth. Do they present, sex work as a negative thing? Do they present it as a positive thing? Are they tragic characters or not? So yeah, it's really interesting. He also goes into the 70s and 80s, like, nudie musicals right near the end, which was, like, kind of something that was just a bit more pizzazzy as a stage thing. So, something I never heard about. So that's really interesting. So, yeah, and realistically, the reason I got this release was because, it was a buy one, get one free for one thing, but it was because Lee had done this video essay, which, given he was a friend who recently had passed away, I wanted to, collect more of the works that he'd done. But this set also benefits from, of course, the Book of Burt. But I should probably touch on the picture and audio. It's the same as the old Universal release from a couple of years ago, and it looks good, it sounds good. It's a 2.0 mix, which is disappointing, even though they've all been 2.0s, but this one is only a 2.0, including the US version. It's a film that, because it's a musical, should have a remastered 5.1 mix. I feel like that would make it sound a lot more healthy, especially for the musical numbers. None of it sounds bad, it doesn't sound cramped or anything, and again, the picture looks good. There's no disjointed stuff or anything. It looks nice and healthy. Could use a restoration because of its use of, production design and costuming and color, but at the same time, it's a very good representation on this Blu-ray alone, and again, the same as the US equivalent. So as I was saying, the last but not least, you do have the Book of Burt book, which is The Man, the Myth, the Mustache, a fanzine about the life and times of Burt Reynolds, written by John Harrison, another friend of mine. It has quotes on the back, which I think these are less quotes and more, I did it, why did I turn down Pretty Woman? Because I'm an idiot. Oh, it's quotes from Burt Reynolds themselves. I never heard him say an unkind word about anyone. I will miss him very much. There's nothing to talk about in cat dancing except that it brings me pain, and it was shown in prisons and airplanes because nobody could leave. Man, that almost feels like a guessing game. Which film does this quote apply to? This is a really nicely produced booklet. John is known for doing fanzine kind of edits and other kind of books and journals and all kinds of stuff when it comes to writing about films and TV and whatnot. He's I've done an interview with him as well. So this, in this case, talks about Burt's box office moustache, Oh Burt, the woman who loved Burt, Burt and Dom, the other odd couple, Death in Gilla Bend, Burt's real life mystery, who was the real stroker ace, Burt's Hot Wheels, and Navajo Reynolds, Burt's Native American roots, and of course, Play Burt at the end. So again, there are your chapters, and you get all your writing as well. It's really nicely produced because it has all these images and stuff. Like, I like it. Again, it has that fanzine look, which I really appreciate. It gives it some extra flavor. It makes it look like something that you actually want to pick up and read. Which I like the trope, because it's popular for the time. You get the love interest stuff, you get the kind of sexy pin-ups as well. So it's not just, about Burt, it's also about his co-stars as well. It's about his relationships. It's finely produced. It has him and his friends as well. Because these films, you do notice a lot of the same cast members popping up, which is always nice. But yeah, it's good. It's well produced. It goes on and on. You can even make your own tash. I feel like I've already mentioned this. I must have done that in my unboxing video during my this week in mail video. But yeah, so yeah, it's good. It's nicely produced, well written, and a fun read as well. And of course, what we missed out on by not getting that as a keychain would have been an interesting sticker keychain in a production. But yeah, as an overall, really nice. So what do I think of the set as a whole? Yeah, it's good. As much as this box is, you know, thin and flimsy, what you get inside is really nice. They all have their individualized, like, stickers for the classic, and worth noting, warning, this contains heavy starch. Which is, it's funny because one of these, he's got a full beard. This one, he's got a moustache. But like, again, the artwork's really nice on these. The inside use of artwork as well. You've always got an image, which is usually a behind-the-scenes shot. You know, disc art is all the same, but at least they emphasize the title separately, so you can't get them mixed up. All in nice, clear keep cases, which is good. Thick as well, with some nice spine and artwork. They've got a good array of special features, including commentaries and video essays. They're all really well produced. The films themselves, sure, vary in quality, but in terms of actual video quality, I had no issue with any of them. Audio quality, the only one that had some faults was just Cannonball Run, but the rest of them sounded good. Best Whorehouse in Texas should have been a 5.1 mix. Like, if it had a proper remaster, it would do really well, but the rest of them are fine presentations for what the films actually are, which are okay films. I would suggest this set as for people who are either a fan of people who have worked on these sets, or if you're a diehard Burt Reynolds fan. But as an overall, I'm not a huge Burt Reynolds fan. I've only seen like 2 or 3 of his films. Now I've seen 5 more, and I never intended to probably ever watch any of these, except for maybe Cannonball Run, just for Jackie Chan. But aside from that and the best little whorehouse in Texas, it's an alright set. You can still get some of these individually, but the perks of the set is the box, the whole complete nature to it all, plus the fanzine by John Harrison. So as an overall, I think it's a really nice production from Umbrella. I feel like it would have been nice if they could put in the effort to like remaster or do some extra stuff to uptick the audio or the video details. But for what we get, these are actually, if I'm not mistaken, Stroker Ace and The Man Who Loved Women are like new on Blu-ray, exclusive to this set. So, you know, first time Blu-rays, which is really nice, you know. So, and again, they look nice, they look good, they look healthy. So whether or not they actually are remastered or not, I don't know, because there's no technical specs detailed, but they do look nice. And I like their usage of added special features, which is one of those things that these kind of companies with their boutique labels, I really like that they strive for that, to put in the extra video essays, to put in the commentaries, to put in the extra uptick, and just, even if the picture and audio is mid to the best we can possibly get, at least the special features, the packaging, the essays are like top tier stuff. So yeah, it's a good set, definitely worth checking out, and I'll see you next time. Adios.